Do you like clean air? Do you like to be able to breathe? Do you like to be able to breathe without having to cough and sputter and choke and have every single breath be painful? Isn't breathing nice? Being able to breathe is so nice. Did you know that a lot of our air quality problems come from car emissions? Hello, my name is Lady Green. Today our topic will be emissions from cars. I have a bachelor's of science in civil engineering and a love of learning, and I also have a passion for protecting the environment. So let's jump right in. So there are several things that come from the emissions of cars that are not good to our health. In fact, they can be very bad to our health. However, a lot of these symptoms that we know about, like all these adverse symptoms, a lot of them have been just to note, a lot of them have been taken from workers who are constantly exposed to these chemicals and not always to the general population. However, when things happen, such as if we have a collection of air that's entrapping a lot of these, like smog, like entrapping things like hydrocarbons, carbon monoxides, oxides of nitrogen, particulates, and other gases. And these are things that come from car exhaust, which produce a lot of smoke or smog over a city. When that becomes entrapped, the not only is the air heated up, hence greenhouse gases, but also the people who live there are at risk, especially those who already have troubles and not sensibilities, but like the very young and the very old and those who are already sick. They're very sensitive to things like air pollution, and so the topic of today is car emissions. So we have hydrocarbons. So stationary sources of hydrocarbons include petrochemical manufacturer, oil refining, incomplete incineration, paint manufacturer, and use and dry cleaning. But these things can also, these manufacturing plants is also kind of go into the life cycle of vehicles, especially those who are and gaseous, the ones that need to have fuel to run, like fuel from crude oil and petrochemicals. So let's get right into it. So carbon monoxide is one of those things where what it does to the body, the health effect of carbon monoxide is that it, normally hemoglobin attaches to attaches to oxygen, and it moves the oxygen through the body to give that oxygen away to the cells, so that we have cell regeneration, cellular, so cellular respiration, cellular respiration and everything like that. However, the friendship, if you will, between hemoglobin and oxygen. So this is our hemoglobin, and our oxygen. This link right here is not very good. So, and that's supposed to be a 2 right there. A 2. So this link right here, right in between them, is not very good. But when we have carbon monoxide in the air, it comes up and it says, "Oh, hey, hemoglobin. Man, you're looking mighty fine." And the hemoglobin says, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much." And so this link is more stable than this. So when you have a nicer, more stable link between your hemoglobin and what is now what has now become carboxyhemoglobin. So what that means is then that this link right here, now that oxygen is just completely out of the picture, this link is now carboxyhemoglobin. And that means then that oxygen is no longer transported throughout the body. Because this is so stable, that hemoglobin isn't going to be able to transport any more oxygen. And so what that does to the body then, it means that you have, well, cells die. So necrosis of tissue, especially when that builds up, because the more that you have of carbon monoxide that you're exposed to, the more that cellular regeneration is unable to happen. The more that you have hemoglobin that becomes carboxyhemoglobin, the more that cells die and you have necrosis of your tissues. So that's the health effect of carbon monoxide, which is one of the things that we often talk about in terms of reducing your carbon footprint. So hydrocarbons, this doesn't really go over a lot of stuff for like the hydrocarbons, but in particular it says illness appeared to be chemical irritation and of the respiratory tract. So oxides of nitrogen. So then there's also oxides of nitrogen, those also affect the so high concentrations of oxides of nitrogen, or NO2, so nitrogen dioxide, and produce pulmonary edema. That means that your lungs filled with fluid, and you're not able to take in as much air. And this is also assuming, though, that your hemoglobin, at least for now, hopefully you're not being exposed to carbon monoxide as well. What that means is that then you have less air that you're able to take in, and less air that you're then therefore able to do respiratory, or excuse me, cellular respiratory, like your cells breathing. Think of it that way. You need to have your cells breathe in order for you to live. And so can we have other things? Oh, and particulates. So particulates are one of those interesting things where even if a particulate is inert, meaning that it can't really seem to do much harm, even if it's inert, it can still carry toxic pollutions or things that are really bad for our body into our body and affect us. And so we have things called alveolar disposition. It's particularly important because the region of the lungs is not provided with cilia to remove particulate matter. So in particular, with particulate matter being in the air, it means that, okay, so we're gonna do a lung. Let's make a lung. We have something that looks like a lung. There's a lung. One lung. Isn't it beautiful? So here's our bronchial tube, and it eventually goes up to the trachea. So in our bronchial tubes, we have these things called cilia. And what they are is basically small, micro, uh, they're like hair. It's like little micro linings. So it's, how do I explain it? So cilia, it's kind of like hair, but it moves, and the idea of it moving is that with the aid of mucus, it can take out things that are not good for us, such as what you get after you smoke a cigarette. And it covers also in our lungs. However, there's a spot. The textbook doesn't say exactly where because this isn't a medical. It's not a medical textbook. It's environmental engineering. It's awesome. But there's a part of our lungs that don't have this stuff. And so then that area is particularly susceptible to particulate matter. Maybe it's over here, maybe not. But because it's susceptible to particulate matter, that means that particulate matter, and say if you smoke cigarettes, that tar will build up because it doesn't have that cilia to expel those wastes and those toxins and those pollutants. So that's another reason why car emissions are bad. So one of the things that we have, let's see, there's another, I'm sure there's others here, particulates and other gases. So there's a lot of different gases that are really very bad for us, like hazardous air pollutants, mercury, asbestos, benzene, beryllium compounds, fluoride compounds, but those aren't necessarily always created by emissions. A lot of these emissions, so let's see. Just because I can't say them doesn't mean they're not there. Or just because I can't find them doesn't mean that there's not a lot of small particulate matter that in large concentrations are very bad for us. And I can't find it right now because I have so many, because I'm not doing what it is that I should. But guess what? There's small amounts of progress, and that's good. So, right now in my city, in the city that I live, I see a lot of people sitting in their cars, letting their vehicle just make more and more gas and put out more and more emissions into the air. The reason why they do that is because it's hot here, and they want to be able to use their air conditioning system in their car. While it is that you can use an air conditioning system in your car, the thing that I have the biggest problem with is that most of the time they're right next to buildings that are being air conditioned. And instead of utilizing the energy and the air conditioning inside the buildings, they're using their own car to put out more of all the stuff that I had just talked about, the hydrocarbons and the carbon monoxide and all the toxic substances, all the other little toxic substances that I couldn't find the name to. And I've seen people in my city go 20 minutes just having their emissions on, and even just walking behind that, it's like no, this is not right. I hear a lot of people say, oh, well, if it's being burned a certain way, or if you have gray matter in the air versus black matter in the air, one is better than the other, but only by a smidgen. Oh, I forgot about that part, right? Only by a smidgen is it better, because the crude oil, it's gasoline versus more petrochemicals. There's actually ways to reduce the amount of petrochemicals that you have going out into the air by using liquids or chemicals and elements that have a higher combustion rate, such as alcohol. So, and the reason for that is because you're wanting to make sure that all of those uh, things that you have are being burned off, like, because you want to make sure that that's a high. But however, it's still very volatile, so it still goes into the air. So yeah, hydrocarbons, carbon monoxide, oxides of nitrogen, particulates, and other gases. So on the other hand, let's just review that again. So hydrocarbons, carbon monoxide, oxides of nitrogen, particulates, and other gases come just from the exhaust pipe. And in my state, the exhaust, like how long you can leave your car running for, is 5 minutes. And it's one thing to heat up your vehicle when it's wintertime, but not where I am. I'm in Midwest, okay? It is hot here, with the exception of Flagstaff. But like in Flagstaff, it would make sense to have your vehicle idle. But it does not make sense to have vehicles freaking idling here. And so many of these vehicles are just outside of buildings. It would be so much better for everybody who lives here to have those people turn off their vehicles, go inside to look at Facebook or whatever it is that they're doing, or to, call somebody or whatever it is. Or you can even stay outside. 100 degrees out, sure, you're sweating, and it's uncomfortable, but we're in the desert. It's gonna be uncomfortable. And no matter where you go, sometimes it's gonna be uncomfortable. We need to be more, a solution to all these emissions is that, first of all, we need to recognize that we just simply by having the knowledge that this is bad, we can make solutions. But when we get together, when everybody gets together as a community and says, hey, we can change this. What that's called is, I wrote it down somewhere. I really did. It's like systemic. It's synergistic. Synergistic. That means that it's relating to the interaction or cooperation of two or more organizations, substances, or other agents, which includes humans, to produce a combined effect greater than the sum of their separate effects. So it's the same thing is with voting. Another solution, so recognizing that we can come together to make things happen is beneficial. We can come together and be able to say, okay, well, I choose to put solar on my roof because the reason for that I say that is because it's related to electric vehicles. In order for electric vehicles to run better and run more efficient, the energy sources that it gets, its energy source, the more renewable that energy source, the better able and more efficient and less air pollution that will get into the air, like the better it is. Much more beneficial. So other things include not having your car run and not having emissions be put out. And that actually includes electric vehicles. And overall, with electric vehicles, it's as according to Union of Concerned Citizens, electric vehicles still put out less emissions and carbon monoxide into the air as do gas-powered vehicles. So from cradle to grave, electric cars are still cleaner. The electric vehicles are running cleaner than ever, even though at the same time, there's like our gas-powered vehicles are also running much more efficiently. Air pollution is still an issue, and every single time, not just when the car is created, but every single time that gas is put into your vehicle, that means that's more carbon emissions and more air pollution and more of this exhaust that's going out into the air and making people cough. And of course, the more that you're exposed to that, the more likely it is that you might get things like lung cancer, or the what I said about the pulmonary edema, or your hemoglobinemia, whatever the thing is, the hydrocarbon hemoglobin. Carboxyhemoglobin. Yeah. So all that stuff. So the more that you're exposed to this, like say if you work on cars, the more likely you are, unfortunately, to have this have lung problems be an issue for you. But at the same time, as somebody who lives in the city, it's irritating, right? It's irritants. But when it's but the summer can be different than the winter. So what that means is basically when the air is stagnant and it's not moving, and we have a situation where it is that the air on top is heavier than the air on or the air on the bottom is heavier than the air on top. There's this sandwich effect where it is that basically that all those emissions and the air pollution are kept in one area. That means then that the concentration of that air pollution will rise, and the effect on the population will be greater and much more more toxic, depending on the levels of certain pollutants and what it is that that city is using as its primary pollutant source. So, and electric vehicles will become even greener the more electricity generated by renewable sources of energy. So those are some solutions, aka turn off your vehicle. So a few of the solutions to summarize: turn off your vehicle and go inside to text your friend or see where your friend is. Investing in some electric vehicles, or investing in an electric vehicle, having solar power, wind power as main energy sources. There are other sources of renewable energy, but the reason why this is because then it makes the electric powered vehicle even more efficient. Okay, so there we have it. We're able to come together as a community and make these changes happen so that we can reduce the amount of air pollution that we have in our city and around the world. My name is Lady Green. It has been a pleasure chatting with you. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you later. Bye!